Oh, thanks for the kind introduction, also for the invitation. Father of Mass Balance, I joined Mass Balance actually in 2017, and it was born, I think, 2010. So uh, maybe I'm more a son of Mass Balance, yeah. But anyhow, since a couple of years, I'm already following and pushing and driving this topic. Yeah. At first, I thought how to introduce that. I thought that I ask you whether you have heard about mass balance. I think better I stop asking that, yeah, because you all know that. Um, the second question would be whether you know what it really is. Yeah, I think maybe most of you should know. Yeah, and the third question would be, do you know how it functions? Yeah, then it will be much more difficult, I think. Yeah, but maybe some questions from you I can answer today, but not all. But first, let me say something about green transformation. I think there was an excellent talk this morning already, but because green transformation and where mass balance would have a significant impact. We're not only talking in the chemical industry on the feedstock transformation where mass balance will play a major role. We are also talking about the energy transformation of the chemical industry as well, where mass balance principles also play a major role. Because green electricity, for example, green steam, all of that needs attribution models, and it is based on attribution principles. Mass balance is one of them. Some words also on the new strategy of BASF, I think, because this is also for us new, for us employees new. It was published last week from our CEO. You know that BASF will change, and Andreas and me, we have both probably have listened to the town hall meeting of our CEO and of the whole board. And the core of the strategy of BASF is the green transformation. And I was really positively surprised that those people were mentioning mass balance multiple times. They called that sustainable attributes. Yeah. Because you have an attribute like bio, you're like recycling, like green electricity, which you attribute to a certain product, to a certain output, where the market has interest or regulatory has interest, giving incentives for that. Yeah. This is the core of BASF's strategy. Yeah. It is mass balance. So, and when you think about what will be the future of the chemical industry, we have seen that this morning. I also can confirm that. I also think that we will have fossil feedstocks, but especially also recycled and bio-based feedstock, as well as CCU. All of them, and also green electricity, besides the fossil, need the mass balance principle to transform. There are also some prerequisites for this green transformation. First, you need a basic competitiveness of the chemical industry to earn money, to invest in such alternative feedstocks, and not building everything new and leveraging on existing infrastructure. And second is the change because of the circularity demands of our society and also the climate change demands of our society. Also here, this pressure will also come, so therefore both will be met and enabled by mass balance. I show you one slide of BASF's new strategy. This was also new to our employees. I think it was public now last week, where you see one KPI on the right-hand side. I like that more, yeah, because it's about circular solutions, loop solutions. So bio or recycled would count for that, for example. So we want to double that from 5 billion to 10 billion. Now you can think about, oh, BASF has 70 billion, that's not much. No, that's the core of the chemistry business, which is 40 billion. And this core we want to change. We are not talking about agricultural solutions, so liquid formulations in agriculture. We are talking here about the core chemistry, yeah, of BASF. And that's huge. And they want to have it in 2030, so that's quite fast. All of that, or most of that, will need mass balance. One big example, just to set the scene, in liquid formulations, maybe you've heard about that, that may be probably the largest deal ever made with mass balance, that is biomass balance. This is a deal with Henkel. in Europe, the transforming the complete portfolio of Henkel, liquid portfolio of Henkel to biomass balance. And one must be clear that these raw materials cost extra. Yeah, and Henkel was willing to do that. Now, some people would say, oh, no, you don't need any regulatory incentives. Look, Henkel case, very nice, they did it voluntary. Yeah. Yes, but the problem was that's the only steel what we have in the whole world. There's a second one from Shell, also with Henkel, but another company, nowhere. Yeah. Yes, BASF has developed since we are pioneering that since 2010, and we have 1,600 products already available, but the business is tiny because all of that costs extra money, and the storyline is not mature enough that the downstream industries are taking that. So in the end, what must be fully clear, to have really a switch to circular economy, there's regulatory backwind needed and regulatory incentives needed for that. Yeah. For example, content targets, or for example, to achieve net zero, or at least incentive for low carbon solutions. This is absolutely needed to really make the switch happen. Because also my CEO said this 5 to 10 billion change until 2030, we will do that depending on the market, whether they need it. And if the market doesn't absorb it, we will not achieve this target. And still in regulatory, we have this challenge that for liquid formulations, for example, there is no regulatory incentive to switch to biomass balance. Why should you switch to biomass balance or to recycled mass balance? Why? Yeah. And this we need, I think, to make that change happen. There's a second good example, Mercedes. It's a lighthouse project of plastics, not liquid formulations, but it shows you that also an OEM takes that as going into the lead, but only for Mercedes S-Class and only for door handles. Yeah, I think they can afford that. Yeah, but in the end, that shows what the OEMs or the brands are doing. Yeah, they are going into lighthouse projects. That's very important. Yeah, to change, really to have a mindset change also in their company. And it took us a couple of years to make that happen with that. Yeah, and all of those people, Mercedes and also the BASF guys they're collecting one award after another one. Yeah, but that does not really make the change. Yeah, you need something more. Yeah, regulatory. What is mass balance now? Going back from policy now, really to explain you what it is and why we do that. The main value chains still in the chemical industry are 100% fossil, because some people say, oh, you have 20% circular carbon already. The main value chains are practically 100% fossil. And a chemical company will not change if there is no market or if there's no incentive to do that. Yeah? So therefore, building new value chains, new assets, separate value chains like bio-based, yes, that will happen, I know. But think about bioplastics. 1% is currently bioplastics. 99% is still fossil. Yeah, they have a growth rate of 10%, but do they change the world? No. That must be clear. It will be always, you will have the change, and you can accelerate the change if you use the existing assets by using alternative feedstocks. And when you have a steam cracker at the heart of the organic or carbon chemistry of, let's say, 1 to 2 million tons of capacity, and you're using, let's say, 10,000 tons of an alternative feedstock, let's say bio-naphtha, how much percentage do you have at the output? Almost nothing. And you cannot build a storyline out of that, yeah, to your downstream market. So you need mass balance that those 10,000 tons can be attributed to an output where there is a market. And the same is also true for recycled feedstock. So the future will be that you will have in such core processes a mix of fossil, recycled, and biomass together. That will be the future. How is that credibly done? And credibly done is that usually by the chemical industry, we're all using credit-based mass balance. I come to that later, what it is. Yeah, you separate the virtual flow of recycled or biomass, yeah, and then you have a production network like BASF organization, and then you attribute it to a certain proportion of your output. Yeah, that's how mass balance is working. Even that your molecules are distributed to all of your outputs, and there are not tiny amounts physically there, but the attribute, the green attribute, like the carbon footprint, the low carbon footprint, or the green attribute in general, or the recycled attribute, is then attributed to a certain part of your products that you could make a real good storyline downstream. Or what the Commission would say, recycled content targets. They also will allow mass balance for recycled content targets. We'll see that in a couple of months. All of that needs certification. Certification is key for the credibility. Mass balance will not function without certification. And you see here typical brands. You have seen that FSC, for example, for the wood. You know that in the supermarket. Also the fair trade for the tea or for the coffee. RSPO for the palm. You also know in the detergent or in the beauty care business. These are all examples from mass balance, and they are quite mature already and in the market since, let's say, 10 to 20 years. Also in the regulated biofuel sector, also here in the UK, you see this typical certification schemes. And from that, there were evolving also recognized certification schemes, giving the credibility also for the circular feedstocks as well. And they're already combining that with energy, yeah, with green energy as well. So what is now mass balance technically? Yeah, I think most of you have a technical background, so therefore this is an ISO norm on chain of custody models. Maybe you have not heard it, but just your takeaway should be mass balance is one of 5 chain of custody models. Bio-based chemistry, so where you have really physical content in your output. This is a controlled blending, for example. Yeah. Book and claim are most of the guarantee of origins, the green electricity. Yeah, most of them are based on book and claim, so you have a certificate trading there. And in between, there is mass balance. So what is mass balance? It's now becoming really technical. And that makes it so difficult to explain that, not only to your downstream customers, but also to politicians, also to experienced people, experienced experts, yeah, because mass balance is so versatile and really you have quite some different approaches there. What you should take away is rolling average. This is not important for you as polymer liquid formulations. This is for the mechanical recyclers. Yeah, when we were talking with them in the recycled content target discussions with the Commission, they're saying rolling average is the truth. Yeah, there is very close to physical content. Yeah, because what you're doing is here, let's say you have a 10% green feedstock input and 90% of fossil. Then you distribute exactly that share to all of your outputs. A mechanical recycler with only one extrusion step can do that, but a chemical company with maybe hundreds of different processes interlinked together, we cannot do that. Yeah. So 99% of the chemical industry or even more are using credit mass balance. So you generate a credit at your entry point of your organization, and this credit or green attribute is then attributed to a certain part of your outputs. That's the green part. I think that will be distributed, so I don't go into the details of these numbers. You can calculate that if you don't trust now these numbers. So credit method, credit mass balance, that's the one what we are using. Now also what you should know is non-proportional and proportional allocation, or attribution, sorry, attribution. So non-proportional is also that what industry is favoring. Why? Because this is a typical steam cracker, the heart of the organic chemistry, the carbon chemistry. You have more or less one input and many outputs. Ethylene, propylene, C4, C5, C6, the aromats, and so on. Yeah. So only parts of that outputs industries give you an incentive, either by regulatory or either by the market. Yeah. So if I would be forced to distribute my high-cost green attribute to all of the outputs, I have a disadvantage. I want to attribute it there where there is a market or where the regulatory gives me an incentive. And how regulatory gives you an incentive in the Commission, it will be sector-specific. So only certain outputs will have an incentive, other outputs will not have an incentive. So therefore, it's so important that we have really non-proportional attribution in the legislation and also accepted by the market. Okay, it's not so relevant, but you should at least know it, because that's the model what the European Commission will decide, hopefully end of this year, on the metrics on how to calculate recycled content. It's a non-proportional approach, just subtracting the fuels because it has to comply with the recycling definition. Yeah, that's a so-called fuel use excluded model, or some people say fuel use exempt model. Yeah, and here important is also to know that you have to comply with certain definitions in the legislation. But this is an important message, because if some people say, oh yeah, the NGOs, they always want to have proportional attribution. Yeah, this is closest, or even rolling average. This is closest to the physical reality, because you have content there. No, even with rolling average, you don't have necessarily physical content there. You cannot measure it. Yeah, you cannot measure it. If I take in January, February only fossil feedstocks, and in the rest of the months only, let's say, biomass feedstocks, the products which I deliver to my customer in February doesn't have any biomass in it. So I cannot measure C14. It's not, the trackability of carbons is lost by mass balance. That's important. There's not a tracking of carbons, green carbons possible. Yeah. And what is important is the cost multiplier effect of mass balance. The burden what we have in our industry, if we would apply different mass balance models, that is applied now for a steam cracker, the most important, let's say, plant or process in the chemical industry or in the organic chemistry. Non-proportional approach, let's say you have a cost level 1. Yeah. Fuel is excluded, let's exclude that, but polymer only is a very special one. You can only attribute it proportionally to polymers and chemicals, and it has to remain these credits in those buckets. So you have already twice to triple times of costs. And if I would, on a steam cracker, if I would apply fully proportional attribution, like I have shown before, according to the yield, I distribute all the green attributes to all of the outputs, I would have 8 times more of the costs on the input side. So cost sensitive. I showed that also to the Commission last year. Yeah, and it was an eye-opener also for them, that they said, okay, proportional attribution obviously doesn't make sense. Yeah. But what I want to show is these are only 3 or 4 models. Yeah, there are several other restrictions what is especially NGOs are discussing, like connectivity and other things. All of that have impact on the cost sensitivity. All of that. Yeah. So for us, it's obviously that we need a certain mass balance approach which we can afford, or which a society can afford in the end. Yeah, that's important. And for us, especially for polymers for liquid formulations, that's only one process. If you would have another process with several outputs, this cost effect will multiply even more. Yeah, so it could come up theoretically also to more than 10 times. Now to harmonization, it's also important, especially for the policymakers. Do you have multi-stakeholder standards where we could think of taking that over, or at least parts of that? Yeah. For certification, there is this ISO 22295 and also 13662. The good message is there will be a standard. This will be public in next 2 months, this draft. We are all waiting for that, also the Commission. And it will be finalized end of this year. This is a good message. And today, I was just in a meeting, today we decided to go to the final step to publication. That's really a big success. Carbon footprint, you want to apply that also mass balance into your carbon footprint calculation, because biomass, obviously, cradle to gate gives you a lower carbon footprint for low carbon solutions. Also here, the chemical industry have included mass balance already in their guideline, Together for Sustainability. It's probably you know, it's 50 of the largest chemical companies are part of this initiative, BASF also, and we will make it public, I think in October next month, the version 2, where you have more detailed guideline on how to calculate mass balance in LCA. Yeah, because you have to make it also more comparable, therefore we did this guideline. There will be an ISO norm also, but that comes 3 years later. Recycled content metrics, it's not so important for polymers for liquid formulations, but it's important because it's an EU regulation model, yeah, and it's passing a policy multi-stakeholder process in the end, yeah, and this is a blueprint for many legislations which are coming after, because now it's about single-use plastics. It's really a tiny amount of the plastics market where it's relevant, but that will be also proliferated in the Commission for packaging as well, also for polymers for liquid formulations for sure, for the self-declaration, for packaging, for automotive especially. So varnishes is obviously important in this respective. So it will be also proliferated in different kinds of sectors relevant for us all. And there will be also an ISO norm on the self-declaration, so that means communication. Now, there are still some challenges. I think I have to think about the time we have to solve. Claims is obviously a problem. What story do I tell? I have to tell it's credible. It has to be transparent, accurate, and sustainable. For sure, always this conflict of measurable content and this virtual thing, avoidance of double counting, regulatory uncertainty, very important for us. And also stakeholder discussions is dominated by many, many technical details, and that the process for standardizing something is really very, very long. Here you see a different picture of the stakeholder acceptance. So the Commission, so that means Europe, it's quite accepted already. In the industry, you see a splitted view. We chemical industry or converters downstream are clearly I think pro mass balance, but we have competitive industries, competitive to plastics in this case, where they're completely against it because they fear us. Yeah, but there's nothing to fear. Yeah, because of cost reasons, and also in this consumer brand thing, you see also very split. Unilever is absolutely pro, and Werner & Merz, a smaller German player, who is absolutely against it, also because of competitive reasons. Experts, sometimes yes, sometimes no, and NGOs were quite skeptical. Yeah, it's something virtual, something not measurable, and so on. So they are really cautious always. This dimension from the European Parliament, it was also there. You cannot believe that. I didn't believe it as well. It was in the Parliament this year. When the single-use plastics were passing the Commission and they did a proposal to the member states, the Green Party, which was wrongly advised by their own advisor, to my opinion, because it was not the right arguments. I have read this paper, yeah, unfortunately, but they brought in, because of lack of knowledge, yeah, into the environmental committee, that which were then discussed even in the plenary, because it was voted to go into the plenary, and 340 to 240. So this was very tough. And they had to decide on something which is really technical and which not much people are understanding the impacts of that. Yeah. But thanks that it was objected. So what is the outlook? Where does it go? The good message is that by our new strategy, we want further to lead this green transformation as company BASF. And mass balance will play this key role. It's clear that this is one of the key tools for the defossilization. And think about the high cost sensitivity. Before you decide on mass balance, think always about cost sensitivity. That's very important. It's challenging to achieve consensus. You have to take that into account in timelines when you think about decisions to be made. And we need also harmonized rules for policy and market that promotes the green transformation. And one last comment on that, in the regulation, we have incentives for biomass for the fuel sector, the biofuel sector. Sustainable aviation fuel is coming now, also maritime fuel, but we don't have it for chemicals and plastics. Yeah, we don't have it for chemicals, especially. And one is clear, if we don't have regulatory backwind, that will, all those numbers, what people are showing there, will be not happening. It will be not happening. Yeah, so we need regulatory incentive on the input side and also on the output side, that you get some attractiveness to go this way. Yeah, otherwise the chemical industry is in a competitive pressure. We have more and more limited amount of money for doing such things. Yeah, that is another challenge. So therefore, we need this backwind because otherwise we will not achieve it. And if we don't achieve it, others will take the market. But that will be not the European chemical players. There will be chemical players coming from outside. That's also clear. Yeah, with that I will end. But still, I'm optimistic. I'm optimistic that we have reasonable people deciding on mass balance, deciding also to make lighthouse projects, to make incentives in regulatory, to make really this green transformation happen. Otherwise, we have no alternative, let's say. Yeah, thanks.
Well,